The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was the ceiling. White. Cracked. A water stain spreading from the corner like a map of somewhere I never wanted to visit. The fluorescent light above me hummed that specific frequency that makes you want to rip your own teeth out. Hospital smell. Antiseptic. Plastic sheets. Someone else's blood. Filled my nose. I knew this ceiling. I knew this bed. I knew the exact crack in the window blind that let in a sliver of afternoon light. And I knew that if I turned my head to the right, I would see a get. Well, card from my mother featuring a cartoon cat wearing a cone of shame. I turned my head. There it was. My heart didn't race. My breath didn't catch. Something inside me just clicked. Like a lock finding its key. The last thing I remembered was the bridge. The cold metal railing against my palms. The wind cutting through my hospital gown because my face was too wrecked for anyone to bother making me look presentable before I walked out of that burn unit. The water below. Dark and hungry. I jumped. I remembered the impact. The way the cold didn't even feel cold because nothing could feel worse than my skin had felt for the past 8 months. The way the water filled my lungs. The way the last thought that went through my head wasn't about my mother. Or my career. Or all the things I'd never get to do. It was about Chloe. Chloe with her perfect brown hair and her perfect grades and her perfect, jealous, rotten heart. Chloe standing over me with that little brown bottle. Her hand shaking. Her eyes wide and wet and absolutely insane. Chloe saying, "You took everything from me. Bonnie. Everything." And then the burning. God. The burning. I sat up. The movement was too fast. My head spun. A nurse appeared in the doorway. A woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders. The kind of nurse who'd seen too many college students ruin their livers and their lives. "Bonnie. Honey. You need to lie down. You had a seizure. Your roommate found you on the floor of your apartment." My roommate. "Chloe. What day is it?" My voice came out rough. Like I hadn't used it in years. Which, technically, I hadn't. Not this voice. Not this body. August 22nd. You've been out for about 18 hours. But the doctors say. August 22nd. Junior year started on August 29th. I was back. I was fucking back. "Can I have my phone?" I asked. The nurse hesitated. "The doctor said you should rest." "My phone. Please." She handed it over. The screen was cracked in the same corner I'd cracked it freshman year when I dropped it in the dining hall. The background was the same photo. Me and Megan at that party where we both wore the same dress and decided it was hilarious instead of embarrassing. I scrolled through the contacts. Chloe. I pressed call. It rang twice before she picked up. Bonnie. Her voice was confused. Wary. We hadn't spoken since the blowout fight in April. The one where I'd finally said all the things I'd been biting back for 2 years. "Why are you calling me?" I closed my eyes. In my memory, I could still feel the way my skin had sloughed off my cheekbones like melted wax. I could still hear the sound I'd made when the acid hit. Not a scream. Exactly. More like a gasp that turned into a gurgle because my lips were already dissolving. "Chloe," I said, and I made my voice soft. Vulnerable. The kind of voice that made people want to protect you. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About everything. About us." Silence on her end. I could hear her breathing. Shallow. Suspicious. "I know I've been a bitch." I continued. "I know I hurt you. With Drew. And with everything else. And I can't stop thinking about how we used to be friends. Real friends. Remember freshman year. Before all the drama." Another pause. Then, "What do you want?" "Bonnie. I want to start over." The words hung in the air between us. I could picture Chloe's face. The way her left eye twitched when she was trying to figure out if someone was lying to her. The way she chewed on her bottom lip when she was deciding whether to trust someone or destroy them. "You're serious," she said. Not a question. Dead serious. I heard her exhale. A laugh. Almost. You know you can't just say sorry and expect everything to be fine. Right? You literally slept with my boyfriend. In my bed. While I was at my grandmother's funeral. I know. I told everyone what you did. Everyone. Megan. Tara. The entire Sigma Chi house. You're basically a pariah at this point. I know. So why would you want to come back to that? Transfer. Go to community college. Spare yourself the humiliation. I opened my eyes. Stared at the water stain on the ceiling. Thought about the bridge. The water. The way drowning felt almost like relief. Because, I said, I don't want to spend the rest of my life running away from my mistakes. I want to face them. I want to face you. And I want to earn back your trust. If you'll let me. Chloe laughed for real this time. It was a mean laugh. A laugh that said she was already imagining all the ways she could make me suffer if I was stupid enough to come back. You really mean that? I really do. Okay. Bonnie. The word okay came out like a promise. Like a threat. Let's see how sincere you are. Move back into the apartment. I'll be there Sunday night. We can talk. Thank you. Chloe. You won't regret this. I hung up before she could respond. Then I sat there in my hospital bed. In my body that didn't have any scars yet. In my face that was still whole and beautiful and mine. And I laughed. I laughed until the nurse came back and asked if I was okay. I laughed until my stomach hurt. I laughed until tears ran down my perfect, unburned cheeks. Because Chloe had no idea. None. She thought I was coming back to apologize. To grovel. To let her push me around and humiliate me in front of everyone we knew. She thought she was going to get to play the victim. The wronged woman finally getting her chance at revenge. She had no idea that I'd already lived this story once. She had no idea that I'd already felt the acid melt my face off. She had no idea that I'd already died. And she definitely had no idea that I'd come back with a plan. I pulled up the photo gallery on my phone. Scrolled back to freshman year. Found the picture of me and Chloe at the fall formal. Both of us in silver dresses. Both of us laughing. Both of us with our arms around each other like we were sisters instead of enemies waiting to happen. I stared at her face. Her pretty, jealous, hateful face. In a few months, that face would be on every news channel in America. Her mugshot would go viral. Her name would become synonymous with cruelty, with envy, with the kind of violence that made people clutch their pearls and shake their heads and say, I just can't believe someone would do something like that. And I would be the reason. Not because I was innocent. Because I wasn't. I was going to be the reason Chloe Harmon went to prison because I was going to make her do exactly what she'd done before. Only this time. There would be cameras. Witnesses. Evidence. This time. There would be no she said. She said. This time. There would be video of her standing over me with that little brown bottle. Her face twisted with rage. Her hand steady as she poured. I was going to give her everything she needed to destroy herself. And all I had to do was be her best friend. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The nurse rushed over. Hands fluttering like worried birds. Bonnie, you really shouldn't. I'm fine, I said. I stood up. The floor was cold against my feet. I walked to the bathroom and locked the door behind me. The mirror showed me a girl I hadn't seen in a long time. High cheekbones. Full lips. Green eyes that caught the light and held it like they were storing it up for later. Skin smooth and unmarked. Not a single scar from chin to hairline. I touched my face. Pressed my fingers against my cheek. Felt the warmth of living tissue underneath. Last time. Chloe had taken this from me. Last time. She'd walked into court with her tearful apology and her rich parents' expensive lawyer. And the jury had believed her when she said it was an accident. I was trying to scare her. She'd said, crying on the stand, I didn't know the bottle was open. I didn't mean to hurt her. It was just a stupid prank that went wrong. And the jury. Those 12 good people with their soft hearts and their belief in redemption had given her 2 years of probation and a lifetime of feeling bad about it. 2 years. For my face. For my career. For my life. I'd spent 8 months in the burn unit. 8 months of skin grafts and infections and waking up to the smell of my own rotting flesh. 8 months of watching my mother cry herself to sleep in the chair next to my bed. 8 months of knowing that no one would ever look at me the same way again. And Chloe had spent 2 years writing apology letters and going to therapy. Then she graduated, gotten a job, gotten married, and I jumped off a bridge. Not this time. This time, I was going to give her exactly what she deserved. Not justice. Justice was for people who believed the system worked. I knew better. The system had failed me once. It would fail me again if I left anything to chance. This time, I was going to give her a trap so perfect, so airtight, that even the best lawyer in the world couldn't talk her way out of it. I pulled out my phone again, scrolled to a contact I'd memorized years ago but never used until the end. Matthew Chin, criminal defense attorney, offices in downtown Chicago. His daughter had been in my bio class freshman year. He'd given me his card at a career fair. Said, "If you ever need anything, call me." I hadn't called him last time. I'd been too shocked, too hurt, too busy trying to hold my face together with my hands to think about lawyers and evidence and the kind of strategy that put people away for a long time. This time, I was calling him before anything even happened. "Hello." His voice was professional, cautious. "Mr. Chin, this is Bonnie Morrow. We met at the Northwestern Career Fair 2 years ago. Your daughter Andrea was in my biology section." A pause. Then, "Bonnie, I remember. How can I help you? I need to talk to you about something." I kept my voice steady, calm. The voice of someone who was thinking clearly. Not the voice of someone who'd just come back from the dead. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to hurt me, wanted to cause me serious, permanent damage, and I knew about it in advance, what would be the best way to make sure they got caught? Another pause. Longer this time. "Bonnie, are you in danger?" "Not yet," I said, "but I will be. And when it happens, I want to be ready." We talked for 20 minutes. He was good, sharp, careful, the kind of lawyer who thought 3 steps ahead. He told me what evidence would hold up in court and what wouldn't. He told me about the importance of establishing a pattern of behavior. He told me about the difference between admissible evidence and the kind of stuff that got thrown out on technicalities. I took notes. I remembered everything. When I hung up, I stood in front of the mirror again. This time, I said to my reflection, "You're going to give me everything I need to destroy you." My reflection smiled back. It was not a nice smile. I checked myself out of the hospital against medical advice. The nurse tried to stop me. The doctor tried to stop me. I signed forms and made phone calls and walked out into the August heat feeling more alive than I'd felt in years. Because I was alive. For the second time. And I wasn't going to waste it. I took the bus back to campus. The buildings looked the same. Brick and ivy and pretentious archways. Students lounged on the quad, sunning themselves like lizards, laughing about nothing. Couples held hands. A guy on a skateboard almost ran me over. Normal. Everything looked so normal. But I knew what was coming. I knew that in a few months, these same students would be gathered around their phones, watching the video, whispering to each other about the girl who got her face melted off by her own roommate. And I knew that I was going to let it happen. Not because I was weak. Because I was strong. Stronger than anyone knew. Stronger than Chloe could ever imagine. I walked past the chemistry building and stopped. Stared up at the windows. Somewhere in there, Chloe would be spending her afternoons as a TA. Mixing chemicals. Playing with things that could kill a person if you weren't careful. Things like sulphuric acid, Things like the exact substance that had rearranged my face in my previous life. See you soon, I whispered to the building. Then I turned and walked toward the apartment I'd shared with Chloe, Megan, and Tara for the past 2 years. The apartment where I'd died. The apartment where I was going to be reborn. I unlocked the door. The place was empty. Megan and Tara weren't moving back until the weekend. Chloe's door was closed, but I could smell her perfume from the hallway. Something floral. Something expensive. Something that had once mixed with the smell of my own burning flesh. I walked to my room. My things were exactly where I'd left them. Clothes in the closet. Books on the shelf. The little cactus I'd bought at the farmer's market still alive on my windowsill. I sat down on my bed, pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, and started writing. Step 1. Become Chloe's best friend. Step 2. Make her hate me more than she's ever hated anyone. Step 3. Give her the opportunity. Step 4. Make sure everyone's watching. Step 5. Watch her fall. I read the list 3 times. Then I deleted it. Not because I'd changed my mind. Because I didn't need to write it down. It was already burned into my brain, along with everything else. I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling. The same crack ran across it that had been there before. A thin line like a scar. Like the one that would eventually run down my face. This time, I said out loud, "You'll give me everything I need to destroy you." And somewhere in the room next to mine, I heard Chloe's phone buzz. I imagined her reading my text message. I imagined her smiling that mean, calculating smile. I imagined her already planning all the ways she was going to make me suffer. Poor girl. She had no idea who she was dealing with. No idea at all. The first day of junior year dawned gray and humid. The kind of Chicago morning that made you regret every life choice that had led you to the Midwest. I woke up at 6, earlier than I'd ever woken up in my previous life, and spent 30 minutes on my makeup. Not because I wanted to look good, because I needed to look perfect. Flawless. The kind of beautiful that made people stop and stare and feel a little bit bad about themselves. The kind of beautiful that made Chloe want to destroy it. I heard her alarm go off at 7. Heard her stumble to the bathroom. Heard the shower run for exactly 12 minutes. She'd always been precise about everything, even her hygiene. By the time she came out, wrapped in a towel with her wet hair dripping down her back, I was standing in the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee. "Good morning," I said, holding one out to her. She stopped, stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "I made it the way you like it." I continued. 2 sugars. Extra cream. A sprinkle of cinnamon on top. Chloe's eyes narrowed. "How do you know how I take my coffee? We lived together for 2 years. "Chloe, I pay attention." She took the cup. Didn't drink it. Just held it. Like she was waiting for it to explode. I meant what I said on the phone. I told her, I want to do better. Be better. And I know I can't undo what I did with Drew. But I can try to make it up to you. Starting now. Her jaw tightened at the mention of his name. Drew. The boy who'd been her boyfriend for 3 months before he'd slid into my DMs and told me he'd always thought I was the hotter one. The boy I'd slept with not because I wanted him. I didn't. Not really. But because I wanted to know what it felt like to take something from Chloe. Petty. Immature. The kind of thing a 19-year-old does when she's insecure and bored and doesn't realize that actions have consequences that stretch out like spiderwebs into the future. "You think coffee is going to fix this?" Chloe asked. "No." I shook my head. "I think time's going to fix this. And consistency. And me showing up every day and proving that I'm not the person I used to be." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she took a sip of the coffee. Her expression didn't change, but she didn't spit it out either. "That's a start," I said. She didn't answer, just turned and walked back to her room, closing the door behind her. I counted to 10. Then I smiled. Step 1. Become Chloe's best friend. Progress. Minimal. But progress nonetheless. The first week was hard. Not because Chloe was mean. She wasn't. Not yet. She was cautious. Watchful. The kind of cautious that came from someone who'd been hurt before and wasn't about to let it happen again. But I knew her. I knew her weaknesses and her fears and the exact words to say to make her let her guard down. I knew that she'd grown up in a house where love was conditional, where she only got attention when she achieved something, where her parents' approval vanished the second she made a mistake. I knew that she was desperate for someone to see her. Really see her. Not the perfect GPA and the flawless hair and the polite smile she put on for professors and parents, but the messy, insecure, terrified girl underneath. I knew because I'd seen it. Last time. In the months before she'd destroyed me. We'd had moments. Brief flashes of connection. Where I'd caught a glimpse of the person underneath the jealousy. And I'd ignored it. I'd been too busy being young and selfish and convinced that everyone else's pain was their problem. Not mine. This time. I used it. Hey, I said on Wednesday night, knocking on her door. She was studying. I could hear the click of her keyboard, the way she always typed too hard when she was stressed. You okay? You've been in here for like 4 hours. I'm fine. Her voice was clipped. Dismissive. You want company. I was about to make popcorn. We could watch that show you're always talking about. The one with the serial killers. A pause. Then her door opened. Chloe looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes. Her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Her expensive skincare routine abandoned for the night. She was wearing an old sweatshirt that said Northwestern Mom, even though her mother had never come to a single one of her swim meets. The one with the serial killers. She repeated, You hate that show. You said it gave you nightmares. I said a lot of things. I replied. I was wrong about most of them. She studied my face. Looking for the lie. Looking for the punchline. I kept my expression open. Vulnerable. The way I'd practiced in the mirror 100 times since waking up in that hospital bed. Okay, she said finally. But we're starting from season 1. No skipping ahead. Deal. We watched 3 episodes. She explained the plot to me like I was 5. And I asked questions and laughed at her jokes and pretended not to notice the way she kept glancing at me out of the corner of her eye, checking for signs that this was all an act. It was an act. But she couldn't tell. That was the thing about being dead and coming back. You learned things. You learned how to read people because your life depended on it. You learned how to lie because the truth had killed you. You learned how to become whoever you needed to become to survive. And right now, I needed to become Chloe's best friend. So that's what I did. By the end of the second week, Megan and Tara had moved back into the apartment. And the dynamic shifted. Megan was a psychology major with a nose ring and an opinion about everything. She'd always been my closest friend in the group. The one I'd called when Chloe and I had our first big fight. The one who'd held my hair back when I drank too much at parties. Tara was quieter. An art history major who spent most of her time in the library and most of the rest of it pretending she wasn't in love with her married ceramics professor. She kept to herself, observed more than she participated, and had a habit of saying exactly what everyone else was thinking at the most awkward possible moments. Neither of them knew about my plan. Neither of them could ever know. But they were going to be useful. The hell is going on with you two? Megan asked on Saturday morning, watching me pour Chloe a bowl of cereal while Chloe scrolled through her phone at the kitchen table. Did Bonnie join a cult? Is this some kind of weird apology ritual? Should I be concerned? It's called being nice. I said. You should try it sometime. Megan snorted. I'm nice. I'm the nicest person you know. I'm so nice it's actually a problem. You literally told Professor Hendrix's syllabus was a war crime against students last week. I stand by that statement. Chloe laughed. It was a small laugh, barely more than an exhale. But it was real. I felt a little thrill go through me. Not happiness. Exactly. Something colder. Something that tasted like victory. She's been helping me study for organic chem, Chloe said, surprising me. I'm crap at the lab component. And she aced it last year. Megan's eyebrows shot up. You're letting Bonnie help you with chemistry. She's actually pretty good at explaining things. Chloe shrugged. Don't tell her I said that. I heard that. I said, you were supposed to. It was such a normal moment. Such a mundane, everyday, nothing kind of moment. Two roommates teasing each other over breakfast. The morning light filtering through the blinds. Someone's playlist drifting from a laptop in the other room. If I closed my eyes, I could almost pretend it was real. If I closed my eyes, I could almost forget what she'd done to me. If I closed my eyes, I could almost imagine a world where I wasn't setting her up to go to prison for 15 years. But I didn't close my eyes. I opened them wider. Speaking of chemistry, I said, casual as anything. Can I ask you something? About the lab. Chloe looked up from her phone. Sure. How hard is it to get access to the chemicals in the stockroom? Like, if you're a TA. She tilted her head. Why? Just curious. I'm thinking about applying to be a lab assistant next semester. Wanted to know what I'd be getting into. Chloe's expression flickered. Something passing over her face too fast to name. You need a key card. And you have to sign everything out. The really dangerous stuff is locked in a separate cabinet. What counts as really dangerous? Concentrated acids. Bases. Anything that could hurt someone if they got into the wrong hands. Interesting. I let the conversation drop. Didn't push. Didn't ask any more questions. But I saw the way Chloe looked at me after I said that word. Interesting. Like she was filing something away. Like a door had opened in her mind that she hadn't even known was there. The first real test came on the third week. I'd been laying the groundwork carefully. Texting Chloe good morning every day. Saving her a seat in the classes we shared. Remembering her coffee order and her favorite brand of protein bars and the exact way she liked her eggs in the morning. She'd started to relax around me. Started to smile when I walked into a room. Started to treat me like a friend instead of a parole officer. It was working. But I needed more than friendship. I needed obsession. I needed her to care about me so much that my success felt like her failure. I needed her to hate me the way you can only hate someone you once loved. So I started talking about the future. So I heard back from that agency. I said one night, flopping onto the couch next to her. My voice was breathless with excitement. Fake excitement. But I'd practiced it enough that it sounded real. The one I told you about. Wilhelmina. Chloe looked up from her textbook. The modeling agency. Yeah. They want me to come in for an in-person interview. Next month. Modeling. Her voice was flat. I didn't know you were still doing that. Just local stuff. Commercials. Catalogs. That kind of thing. But this. I hugged a pillow to my chest, making my eyes go wide. This could be big. Chloe. Like. National campaigns big. The woman I talked to said they're looking for fresh faces for a new skincare line. Skincare. Chloe's lip curled slightly. That's ironic. I pretended not to hear the dig. I know. Right. But anyway. She said if the interview goes well, they might want to do a test shoot right away. Can you imagine? Me. On a billboard somewhere. I can imagine. Chloe said. There was something in her voice that I recognized. Something I'd heard before. Right before she'd walked into that abandoned building with a bottle in her hand. Jealousy. It was the ugliest emotion in the world. And it was written all over her face. You know what the best part is? I leaned in. Conspiratorial. They said my face is perfectly symmetrical. Apparently that's really rare in modeling. Only like 2% of the population has it. Lucky you. I know. I smiled. Wide. Bright. The kind of smile that showed all my teeth. I'm so lucky. I watched her hands clench around her textbook. Watched her jaw tighten. Watched something dark and hungry move behind her eyes. There she is. I thought. There's the girl who killed me. That night, I heard Chloe get up at 2 in the morning. I was already awake. I'd been waiting, listening, counting the minutes until she cracked. Her door opened. Her footsteps padded down the hallway. The bathroom door closed. I slipped out of bed and pressed my ear against my door. The bathroom light clicked on. Then I heard a different sound. The rustle of a drawer opening. The clink of something metal. The soft tap of fingers on a phone screen. I waited. 5 minutes later, her footsteps returned. But instead of going back to her room, they stopped outside my door. I held my breath. Then I heard a whisper. So quiet I almost missed it. Perfectly symmetrical. A pause. We'll see about that. Her door closed. I crawled back into bed and stared at the ceiling, grinning in the dark. Step 2. Make her hate me more than she's ever hated anyone. Progress. Accelerating. The next morning, I found her laptop open in the living room. It was careless of her. Chloe was never careless. But she'd been distracted. Tired. Running on 3 hours of sleep and the kind of rage that made you stupid. The screen was still lit. The browser was still open. And there, in the search bar, were the words. What happens when you get sulfuric acid on your skin? I didn't touch the laptop. I didn't screenshot anything. I just stood there for a moment, reading the search results that populated automatically. Severe chemical burns. Permanent scarring. Blindness if it contacts the eyes. Death in extreme cases. I felt a chill run down my spine. Not fear. Excitement. I closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen. Made Chloe's coffee. 2 sugars. Extra cream. A sprinkle of cinnamon on top. When she stumbled out of her room 20 minutes later, red-eyed and twitchy, I handed her the cup with a smile. Good morning. Rumi. She took the coffee. Didn't meet my eyes. You look tired. I said. Bad dreams. Something like that. Well, drink up. I patted her shoulder. Big day today. I've got that organic chem exam. And I need you to quiz me later if you have time. Sure. Her voice was hollow. I have time. She walked back to her room. I watched her go. And in the privacy of my own head, I laughed. Over the next 2 weeks, I turned up the heat. I talked about the modeling interview constantly, the outfit I was going to wear, the portfolio I was putting together, the way my agent said I had real potential. I brought home a copy of Vogue and left it open on the coffee table to a spread featuring a model who looked vaguely like me. I mentioned, offhandedly, that my mother had always said I had the kind of face that could launch 1,000 ships. Every time, I watched Chloe's reaction. Every time, I saw the jealousy harden into something darker. But I also gave her reasons to keep me close. I helped her study for her Argo exam, the one she was failing despite spending every waking hour in the library. I explained reaction mechanisms in a way that finally made sense to her. Drew out diagrams. Stayed up late quizzing her until she could recite them in her sleep. She got a B+, the highest grade she'd gotten all semester. You're actually not terrible at this, she said when she saw her score. There was something in her voice I hadn't heard before. Something almost like respect. I'm not terrible at a lot of things, I said. You're just used to seeing the worst version of me. She looked at me for a long moment. Which version is this? The new one. She nodded slowly. I think I like this one better. Good. I thought. Like me. Trust me. Need me. Because the more you need me, the more you'll hate me when I take it away. The night before my interview, I made my move. We were alone in the apartment. Megan and Tara at some party I'd pretended to be too tired to attend. Chloe was at the kitchen table, pretending to study. her eyes flicking to me every few seconds. I sat down across from her. I'm nervous, I admitted. About tomorrow. Why? You've done interviews before. Not like this. This one's different. This one actually matters. Chloe set down her pen. What do you mean? I leaned forward, dropping my voice. The agency I'm meeting with. They represent like half the models in Chicago. If they like me, I could actually make a career out of this. Like, a real career. With money and everything. That's great. Bonnie. Her voice was flat. It is. I smiled. But also, I don't know. There's part of me that's scared. Scared of what? I looked down at my hands. Made my voice small. Scared that something's going to go wrong. That I'm going to mess it up somehow. That I'm going to lose everything right when it's finally starting to happen. Chloe was quiet for a moment. Then, you won't mess it up. How do you know? Because you're good at everything you try. The words came out like she was forcing them through clenched teeth. You always have been. It's annoying. Actually. I laughed. I'm not good at everything. Name one thing you're bad at. I pretended to think about it. Cooking. You made carbonara from scratch last week and it was better than my mom's. Okay. Fine. I'm bad at being humble. Chloe snorted. That's not a skill. Bonnie. That's a personality trait. Same thing. We sat in silence for a moment. It was almost comfortable. Almost. Can I ask you something? I said. Sure. Why did you hate me so much? Before. Like, really hate me. Not just because of Drew. That was messed up. I know. But it felt like there was more to it. Chloe's face went still. I didn't hate you. Come on. I kept my voice gentle. Probing. We both know that's not true. She was quiet for a long time. I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then. Because you have everything. What? Everything. Chloe repeated. You're pretty. You're smart. People like you without you even having to try. You walk into a room and everyone looks at you. And I. She stopped. Swallowed. I have to work for every single thing I've ever gotten. Every grade. Every friend. Every opportunity. And you just float through life like nothing matters. That's not true. Isn't it? She met my eyes. You slept with my boyfriend. Bonnie. Not because you wanted him. Because you could. Because you knew you could take him from me. And you wanted to see if you were right. I let her words hang in the air. Then I nodded. You're right. That's exactly why I did it. I know. And I'm sorry. You've said that. I know. I reached across the table and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. I can't undo it. But I can promise you something. What? I'm never going to take anything from you again. Ever. Whatever you want. Whatever you need. I'll help you get it. I swear. Chloe stared at our hands. Her fingers were cold. Mine were warm. Why? She asked. Why are you being so nice to me? What do you want? I want you to forgive me. That's it. That's it. She pulled her hand back. But her expression had changed. Softened. Somehow. Like something inside her had cracked open just a little. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said. But I'm working on it. That's all I'm asking for. I stood up, picked up my coffee cup, walked toward my room. Bonnie. I turned. The interview tomorrow. Chloe said. Where is it? I felt my heart rate spike. Kept my face neutral. Downtown. Why? No reason. Just. Good luck. Thanks. I walked to my room. Closed the door. Leaned against it. And let myself breathe. She asked. I thought. She asked where it is. She's planning something. She just doesn't know I'm planning something bigger. I checked my hidden camera feeds that night. 3 cameras. all installed in the old chemistry building over the past 2 weeks. I'd gone there late at night, when the building was empty, and placed them in the abandoned lab on the 4th floor. The same lab where Chloe had found me last time. The cameras were small, wireless, the kind you could buy online with a prepaid credit card and no questions asked. I'd tested them 3 times. They worked perfectly. All I needed now was for Chloe to take the bait. And I knew she would. Because she'd done it before. She'd do it again. History always repeated itself. Unless you forced it not to. I pulled out my phone and sent Chloe a text. Hey, I know I said the interview is downtown, but actually they want me to do a test shoot at the old chem building. Weird. Right. Apparently they like the industrial vibe. Anyway, I'll be there around 4. Wish me luck. 3 dots appeared. Then, the old chem building. That place is creepy. I know. But whatever gets me on a billboard. Right. Right. A pause. Then, what floor? 4th. Why? Just curious. Good luck tomorrow. Thanks. Chloe. You're the best. I put down my phone, stared at the ceiling, and smiled. Step 3. Give her the opportunity. Tomorrow. The morning of the fake interview. I woke up feeling nothing. Not nervous. Not scared. Not excited. Just empty. The kind of empty that comes after you've already died once and realized that nothing in this world can hurt you as much as living through that had. I made Chloe's coffee. 2 sugars. Extra cream. Cinnamon. She was already at the kitchen table when I walked out, dressed for class in jeans and a sweater. Her hair pulled back in a ponytail so tight it pulled at the corners of her eyes. You're up early, I said. Couldn't sleep. Me neither. I set the coffee in front of her. Too nervous about this afternoon. Chloe wrapped her hands around the mug. Didn't drink. Just held it. Like the warmth was the only thing keeping her grounded. You really want this? She said. It wasn't a question. I really do. Why? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? Why? Because it's an opportunity. Because it could change my life. No. Chloe shook her head. I mean, why do you want it so badly? What are you trying to prove? I sat down across from her. Took a sip of my own coffee. Black. No sugar. Because I wasn't pretending with myself. I'm trying to prove that I'm worth something. I said. That I'm more than just the girl who made a bunch of mistakes in college. That I can actually do something with my life. Chloe nodded slowly. I get that. Do you? Yeah. She finally took a drink. I think that's all anyone wants. To feel like they matter. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. At the way her fingers trembled slightly around the mug. At the small, almost invisible scar on her chin from when she'd fallen off her bike at age 7 and her parents had been too busy fighting to take her to the hospital. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something that might have been guilt. Then I remembered the acid. The way it had felt like my face was melting off. The way I'd screamed until my throat gave out. The way Chloe had just stood there, watching. Her expression not horrified, but satisfied. The guilt disappeared. Chloe, I said, can I tell you something? Sure. I know I've been a lot lately. With the modeling stuff. Going on and on about it. I'm sorry if it's annoying. It's fine. It's not fine. I can see it's bothering you. I leaned forward. But here's the thing. I'm not trying to make you jealous. I'm not trying to compete with you. I'm just, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm actually good at something. Like I'm actually worth something. And I want to share that with you because you're my friend. Chloe's expression flickered. We're friends, aren't we? She didn't answer for a long time. Then, I don't know. Maybe? It's weird. I know it's weird. But weird doesn't mean bad. She laughed. Just a little. I guess not. We're going to be fine. Chloe. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You and me. We're going to be just fine. She squeezed back. I felt nothing. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of classes and coffee and pretending to be normal. At noon, I walked to the library and found a quiet corner. Pulled out my phone. Called Matthew Chin. Bonnie. He said. Everything okay? Everything's perfect. I kept my voice low. I think it's going to happen today. Today. The old chemistry building. 4th floor. Around 4 o'clock. There will be witnesses. Bonnie. If you're in danger. I'm not in danger. I'm exactly where I need to be. I paused. You'll know when to show up. I'll make sure of it. Bonnie. I have to go. Thanks for everything. Matthew. I hung up before he could respond. Then I opened the hidden camera app on my phone and checked the feeds. 3 cameras. 3 angles. 1 covering the door. 1 covering the center of the room. 1 covering the window. All working. All recording. All ready to capture exactly what was about to happen. I closed the app and waited. At 2 o'clock, I went back to the apartment. Megan and Tara were in the living room, watching some reality show about housewives who hated each other. Hey, Megan said, not looking away from the screen. You ready for your big thing? Getting there. You nervous? Terrified. That's good. Means you care. I sat down on the arm of the couch. Hey, have either of you seen Chloe? She wasn't in our psych class this morning. Tara looked up from her phone. She texted me. Said she had to help set up a lab thing. TA stuff. Lab thing. Something about checking inventory. Why? No reason. I stood up. I'm going to go get ready. I walked to my room. Closed the door. Leaned against it. Lab thing. Checking inventory. Access to chemicals. My heart was racing. Not from fear. From anticipation. I opened my closet. Pulled out the outfit I'd chosen for today. A white blouse and jeans. Simple. Innocent. The kind of clothes that made you look young and vulnerable and worth protecting. I laid them on my bed. Then I pulled out my phone and typed a message to an unsaved number. 4 p.m. Old Chem Building. 4th floor. Don't be late. The response came a minute later. We'll be there. I deleted both messages. Then I got dressed. At 3:30, I walked out of my room. Megan and Tara were still on the couch. Wish me luck. I said. Good luck. They said in unison. I walked to the door. Paused. Turned back. Hey, I said. If I'm not back by 6, call the police. Megan laughed. Very funny. I'm serious. Her smile faltered. Bonnie. What? Kidding. I flashed a grin. See you guys later. I walked out the door before she could ask any questions. The walk to the old chemistry building took 15 minutes. The building had been abandoned for years. Too old. Too expensive to renovate. Too full of asbestos and bad memories to be worth saving. The university kept it locked up. Mostly. But the lock on the side door had been broken for as long as anyone could remember. I'd checked it yesterday. Still broken. I walked through the side door at 3:50. The building smelled like dust and decay and something else. Something chemical. Something that lingered in the walls long after the labs had been cleared out. I climbed the stairs to the 4th floor. The lab was exactly as I remembered it. Tall windows. Long counters. Sinks stained brown with old chemicals. And in the corner, a metal stool that had been there since the 70s. I sat down on the stool, pulled out my phone, opened the camera app, and waited. The door opened at 4:03. Chloe walked in. She was wearing jeans and a hoodie, not her usual carefully curated outfit. Her hair was messy, like she'd been running her hands through it. Her eyes were wide and dark. In her hand, She held a small brown bottle. The same brown bottle. The same brown bottle she'd held the last time. Bonnie, she said. Her voice was shaking. Chloe. I didn't move. Didn't stand up. Just sat there on the stool. Looking at her. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. She took a step closer. You said you had an interview. I do. They're running late. Really? Her voice was flat. Disbelieving. Because I checked. I called every modeling agency in Chicago. None of them have an appointment with anyone named Bonnie Morrow today. My heart skipped a beat. She'd checked. She'd actually checked. That meant she was thinking. Planning. Trying to catch me in a lie. Good. I don't know what to tell you. I said, keeping my voice calm. Maybe they misscheduled. Maybe. Stop lying to me. Chloe's voice cracked. Just stop. I know you don't have an interview. I know you don't have an agent. I know you've been lying about all of it. Why would I lie about that? Because you wanted me to be jealous. She laughed. A broken, horrible sound. You wanted me to hate you. You wanted me to do something stupid. Isn't that right? I looked at her. At the bottle in her hand. At the way her whole body was trembling. And I made a choice. No. I said. That's not why. Then why? Because I wanted to see if you'd come. Chloe froze. What? The bottle. Chloe. I nodded toward her hand. What's in it? Her grip tightened. You know what's in it. Sulphuric acid. Concentrated. The kind you have to sign out from the locked cabinet in the lab. How do you? Because I know you. Chloe. I stood up from the stool. Took a step toward her. I know you better than anyone. I know you've been thinking about this for weeks. I know you searched for what it would do to my skin. I know you've been imagining what I'd look like with my face melted off. Stop. She was crying now. Tears running down her cheeks. Just stop. And I know. I continued. Taking another step. That you're not going to do it. Chloe stared at me. What? You're not going to do it. I stopped 3 feet away from her. Close enough to see the individual tears on her lashes. Close enough to smell the perfume she was wearing. Because you're not a monster. Chloe. You're just a girl who got hurt and never learned how to let it go. You could have done it already. You've had the bottle in your hand for 5 minutes. You've had the opportunity. But you haven't. I held out my arms. So go ahead. Do it. Show me what kind of person you really are. Chloe's hand shook. The bottle wobbled. For a moment. Just a moment. I thought she might actually do it. Then her face crumpled. She dropped the bottle. It hit the floor and rolled. Unbroken. Across the dusty tiles. I can't. She whispered. I can't do it. I bent down. Picked up the bottle. Screwed the cap on tight. I know. I said. That's why I chose you. What? I looked at her. At her tear. Streaked face. At the realization slowly dawning in her eyes. Because you're not a monster. I said. You're just someone who made a mistake. And I wanted to give you the chance not to make it. Chloe stared at me. I don't understand. I know. I tucked the bottle into my pocket. You will. Someday. I walked past her. Toward the door. Bonnie. I didn't stop. Bonnie. Wait. I paused at the threshold. Turned back. Chloe was standing in the middle of the room. Arms wrapped around herself. Looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Are we okay? She asked. I thought about the bridge. The water. The cold. No. I said. But we will be. I walked out the door. Down the stairs. Out of the building. And into the sunlight. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from the unsaved number. We're outside. Didn't see anything. Are we still needed? I typed back. Not today. Stand down. Then I put the phone away. Walked home. And tried to figure out what the hell I was going to do now. The days after the chemistry building felt like walking through water. Slow. Heavy. Wrong. I'd planned for Chloe to attack me. I'd planned for the cameras, the witnesses, the perfect legal case. I'd planned for everything except the possibility that she wouldn't go through with it. But she hadn't. She'd dropped the bottle. She'd cried. She'd asked if we were okay. And I'd told her we would be. The problem was, I didn't know if that was a lie. I spent the next week going through the motions. Class. Coffee. Conversations. Chloe acted normal. Too normal. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't stood in an abandoned building with a bottle of acid in her hand, ready to destroy my face. But I noticed things. The way she flinched when I touched her shoulder. The way she stared at me when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd stopped eating. Pushing food around her plate. Claiming she wasn't hungry. Losing weight she couldn't afford to lose. She was scared. Of me. Of herself. Of what she'd almost done. And that fear was making her dangerous. On Thursday night, I heard her on the phone in her room. I shouldn't have listened. But I did. I can't do this anymore. She was saying. Her voice low and strained. I feel like I'm going crazy. A pause. Whoever was on the other end was talking. I know. But you don't understand. She's different now. She's not the same person she was before. Another pause. That's the problem. She's so nice. And I still hate her. I hate her so much it makes me sick. But she's being so nice. And I don't know how to hate someone who's being nice to me. Longer pause. You're right. I'll figure it out. She hung up. I crept back to my room. And I started thinking. The next morning, I changed tactics. No more fake modeling interviews. No more subtle jabs about my perfect face. No more pushing her toward the edge. Instead, I became the best friend she'd always wanted. I woke her up with coffee every morning. I walked her to class. I stayed up late helping her study for exams she was failing. I listened when she talked about her parents, about how they'd never believed in her, never supported her, never loved her the way she needed. I became essential, indispensable, the kind of person she couldn't imagine living without. And then, slowly, carefully, I started pulling away. Not all at once. Not enough for her to notice right away. Just a little. Every day. A text left on read. A coffee forgotten. A study session cut short. And every time, I watched her face fall. Every time, I watched her need for me grow. You've been distant lately, Chloe said on a Tuesday night, cornering me in the kitchen. I was making tea. Chamomile. The kind that was supposed to help you sleep. Have I? I kept my voice light. I didn't notice. You haven't been answering my texts. I've been busy. With what? I shrugged. Life. Chloe crossed her arms. This is about the building, isn't it? The chemistry building. You're still mad at me. I'm not mad. Then what are you? I turned to face her. Looked her in the eyes. Let her see something. Not everything, but something. I'm confused. I said, I thought we were making progress. I thought you were getting better. And then I find out you've been carrying a bottle of acid around. Ready to. I wasn't going to do it. You brought it to the building. I changed my mind after I called you out on it. I shook my head. That's not the same. Chloe, that's not. I stopped. Took a breath. Look, I want to trust you. I really do. But I can't if you're not being honest with me. Chloe's face crumpled. I am being honest. Then tell me the truth. I stepped closer. Tell me why you hate me so much. I told you. Because you have everything. That's not a reason. Chloe, that's an excuse. Fine. Her voice cracked. You want the real reason. Because you make me feel like nothing. You walk into a room and everyone looks at you. And I'm just there. I'm just the girl standing next to you. The one nobody notices. That's not true. It is true. It's always been true. And I hate you for it. I hate you because you don't even have to try. I hate you because you're beautiful and smart and everyone loves you. And I have to fight for every single thing I've ever gotten. She was crying now. Ugly crying. The kind that came from somewhere deep. And I hate you. She continued. Because you slept with Drew. Not because I loved him. I didn't. But because you proved that you could take him from me. That you could take anything from me. And I've never been able to forgive you for that. I let her words hang in the air. Then I reached out and pulled her into a hug. She stiffened at first. Then she collapsed against me, sobbing into my shoulder. I'm sorry. She kept saying. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know. I said, rubbing her back. I know you are. I held her until she stopped crying. Then I made her tea. And I sent a text to Matthew Chin. She's close. Another week or two. His response came immediately. Are you sure about this? I looked at Chloe, sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in a blanket, looking small and broken and nothing like the monster I remembered. No, I typed. But I'm doing it anyway. The opportunity came the following Wednesday. Chloe's organic chem lab was canceled. The professor was sick. Something about the flu going around. She had the afternoon free, and she spent it in her room, supposedly studying. I was in the living room, pretending to read, when I heard the door to her room open. Bonnie. I looked up. Yeah. I'm going to the lab. I need to pick up some papers. Now. It's the only time I have before my shift. She was already grabbing her keys. I'll be back in an hour. She left. I counted to 60. Then I got up and walked to her room. The door was unlocked. She'd been distracted. Rushing. Not thinking. I stepped inside. Her room was cleaner than mine. Neater. Everything in its place. Books on the shelf. Clothes in the closet. A single photo on her nightstand of her and her mother at some long-ago vacation. I went straight to her desk. The top drawer was locked. I'd expected that. I pulled out a paperclip from my pocket. I'd been carrying it for weeks. And picked the lock. It took 30 seconds. Inside the drawer, a small notebook, a flash drive, and a folded piece of paper. I opened the notebook. Notes on Bonnie. It read at the top. Below that, in Chloe's handwriting. Routines. Wakes at 7. Coffee. Class from 9. 12. Lunch at the dining hall. Studies in the library until 5. Home by 6. Vulnerabilities. Sleeps with her door unlocked. Walks home alone at night. Trusts people too easily. Triggers. Comments about her face. Comparisons to other models. Reminders of Drew. Opportunities. Old chem building abandoned. No cameras. Her car unlocked. Easily accessible. Night walks alone. No witnesses. I read the list twice. Then I put the notebook back. The flash drive was labeled C in Sharpie. I pocketed it. The folded piece of paper was a map of campus, with certain buildings circled in red. The old chemistry building was circled 3 times. I refolded the paper, put it back in the drawer, relocked it, and walked out of her room. In my room, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. The files were all videos. I opened the first one. It was me, walking to class, filmed from across the street. The date stamp said 3 weeks ago. The second video was me again, in the dining hall, eating lunch with Megan. The third was me walking home at night, alone, the streetlights casting long shadows behind me. The fourth was me in my room, through the window, changing clothes. I closed the video, sat back in my chair, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Fear. Not of Chloe. Of myself. Because I'd known she was obsessive. I'd known she was dangerous. I'd known all of that going in. But seeing it. Seeing the evidence of how long she'd been watching me. How carefully she'd been planning. Made it real in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't just jealousy. This wasn't just a girl who'd made a mistake. This was someone who had been thinking about hurting me for months. Someone who had documented my routines and my vulnerabilities and my opportunities. Someone who had filmed me without my knowledge or consent. Someone who was, in every way that mattered, a predator. And I had been trying to convince myself that she deserved a second chance. I copied the files onto a second flash drive. Then I put the original back in Chloe's drawer the next time she left her room unlocked. And I called Matthew Chin. It's time, I said. She's been stalking me for months. I have proof. Bonnie, I need you to be ready. It's going to happen soon. How soon? I thought about the map, the circled building, the notebook full of my routines. Within 2 weeks. I said, I'll make sure of it. Bonnie, please, tell me what you're planning. I couldn't. Because if I told him, he'd try to stop me. And I couldn't let anyone stop me. Not now. Not when I was so close. I'll call you when it's done, I said. And I hung up. The next morning, I made Chloe's coffee. 2 sugars. Extra cream. Cinnamon. She took it with a smile. I'm glad we talked, she said. I feel like things are better between us. Me too. I've been thinking. She set down her mug. We should do something this weekend. Just the 2 of us. Like we used to. What did you have in mind? I don't know. Maybe a hike. There's that trail by the river. It's supposed to be beautiful this time of year. Sure, I said. That sounds nice. She smiled. It was a real smile. The kind that reached her eyes. And for the first time since I'd woken up in that hospital bed, I almost believed that things could be different. Then she said, Hey, do you still have that white blouse? The one you wore to the fall formal freshman year. Why? No reason. She shrugged. I was just thinking about that night. How pretty you looked. I felt a chill run down my spine. The old chem building. I said, That's where you want to go this weekend. Chloe's smile didn't waver. That's not a hike. Bonnie, that's just creepy. I know. But it's where this is going. Isn't it? Where what is going? I looked at her. At her perfect, smiling, lying face. And I made my choice. You're right, I said. The hike sounds great. Let's do that instead. But we both knew we wouldn't. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was about to happen. I thought about the Chloe I'd known last time. The one who'd poured acid on my face and then stood there watching while I screamed. I thought about the Chloe I'd seen in the kitchen tonight. The one who'd smiled and suggested a hike and pretended everything was fine. I thought about the notebook, the videos, the map. And I thought about my own reflection in the mirror. The face that hadn't been scarred yet. The face that Chloe was going to destroy. Because I was going to let her. Because I had to. Because if I didn't, she'd never face consequences for what she'd done. Not to me. Not to whoever came after me. I picked up my phone, opened the hidden camera app, checked the feeds. 3 cameras, 3 angles, all working, all recording. I closed the app, and I sent a text to an unsaved number. Saturday, 4 p.m. Old Chem Building, 4th floor. Be ready. The response came immediately. We'll be there. I deleted the messages, closed my eyes, and waited for morning. Saturday dawned gray and cold. The kind of day that smelled like rain even though the sky was clear. I woke up at 6. Earlier than I needed to. Earlier than I wanted to. I lay in bed for an hour. listening to the apartment wake up around me. Megan's alarm. Tara's shower. The creak of Chloe's door when she finally got out of bed. Normal sounds. Everyday sounds. The sounds of a life I was about to lose. At 7:30, I got up, made coffee. 2 sugars. Extra cream. Cinnamon. Chloe was in the kitchen when I walked out, dressed in jeans and a sweater. Her hair loose around her shoulders. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep." "Me neither." She took the coffee from my hands. "Nervous about the hike?" "Not really." "Good." She smiled. "It's going to be fun. Just us. Like old times." Old times. I thought. Before you tried to kill me. Just us. I agreed. We didn't talk much after that. I went back to my room. Got dressed. The same white blouse I'd worn the last time. Jeans. Sneakers. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face. My perfect, unmarked, beautiful face. The face that Chloe was going to destroy. And I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. At 3 o'clock, I left the apartment. Good luck. Megan called from the couch. Don't fall off any cliffs. I'll try not to. Text when you get there. I will. I walked out the door. The walk to the old chemistry building took 15 minutes. I took the long way. Past the library, where I'd spent countless hours studying for exams that didn't matter. Past the dining hall, where I'd laughed with friends I'd never see again. Past the bridge where I died. I stopped at the bridge, leaned against the railing, looked down at the water. It was the same water, dark and cold and hungry. But I wasn't the same person who jumped into it. I was someone new, someone harder, someone who had already died once and wasn't afraid to do it again. Not today. I whispered to the water. Maybe not ever. I pushed off the railing and kept walking. The old chemistry building loomed in front of me, gray and ugly and full of bad memories. I walked around to the side door. The lock was still broken. I stepped inside. The building was silent. Dust motes floated in the shafts of light from the windows. My footsteps echoed off the concrete floors. I climbed the stairs to the 4th floor. The lab was exactly as I remembered it. Tall windows, long counters, sinks stained brown with old chemicals. And in the corner, the metal stool. I sat down on the stool, pulled out my phone, opened the hidden camera app. All 3 cameras were recording. I put my phone away and waited. The door opened at 4. Oh, 3. Exactly the same time as last time. Chloe walked in. She was wearing the same jeans and hoodie from before. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was pale. In her hand, she held a small brown bottle. The same brown bottle. I knew you'd come, I said. Chloe stopped. You knew. I knew. I didn't stand up, just sat there on the stool, looking at her. I've always known. Chloe. Since the beginning. What are you talking about? The notebook. The videos. The map. I watched her face go white. I know everything. Chloe. I know you've been watching me. I know you've been planning this for months. I know you've been waiting for the right moment. How do you? It doesn't matter how I know. I stood up. What matters is that I'm here. And you're here. And that bottle in your hand is filled with enough sulphuric acid to melt my face off my skull. Chloe's hand shook. That's not. Don't lie to me. My voice was sharp. Not now. Not anymore. She stared at me. Her eyes were wide. Her face was pale. Her hand was trembling. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Doing what? Testing me. Pushing me. Why? Because I need to know what kind of person you are. I'm not. She stopped. Swallowed. I don't want to hurt you. Then why are you here? I don't know. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I brought this. I don't know anything anymore. Then put the bottle down. She didn't move. Put the bottle down. Chloe. I can't. Why not? Because if I put it down, then I have to admit that I was going to use it. And I can't. She sobbed. I can't admit that. I can't be that person. But you're that person. I stepped closer. You've been that person for a long time. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. Stop. You wrote down my routines. You filmed me without my permission. You've been planning to hurt me for months. That's not something a good person does. Chloe. I said stop. She raised the bottle. Her hand was steady now. Her eyes were dry. Her face was hard. Last chance. I said, put it down. I can't. Then do it. Chloe stared at me. And in that moment, I saw her make a choice. The same choice she'd made last time. The choice that had killed me. I'm sorry, she whispered. And she threw the acid in my face. The pain was exactly as I remembered it. The burning. The screaming. The smell of my own skin cooking. I fell off the stool. Hit the floor. My hands went to my face. A mistake. I knew. Because it would spread the acid to my fingers. But I couldn't help it. Chloe was screaming. Not me. Her. She was standing over me. Her hands over her mouth. Her eyes wide with horror. I didn't mean. She was saying. I didn't. But I couldn't hear her anymore. Because the pain was everywhere. My eyes. My nose. My lips. My cheeks. My forehead. All burning. All dissolving. All dying. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I heard a voice. My own voice. This is for last time. Then everything went black. I woke up in the hospital. Same ceiling. Same crack. Same water stain. Same fluorescent light humming the same frequency. But everything else was different. The pain was still there. A dull, throbbing ache that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. My face was wrapped in bandages. I could feel them pulling at my skin every time I breathed. My mother was sitting in the chair next to my bed. She was crying. Bonnie, she said when she saw my eyes open. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Mom, I tried to say, but my mouth didn't work right. Because my lips were gone. Or what was left of them. Don't try to talk. My mother said, reaching for my hand. The doctors said you need to rest. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days. I'd been out for 3 days. Chloe. I managed to say. My mother's face hardened. She's in jail. The police arrested her at the scene. They have video of everything. I closed my eyes. Good. Bonnie. My mother squeezed my hand. Honey, can you hear me? I opened my eyes. Nodded as best I could. The doctors say you're going to need multiple surgeries. Your right eye. She stopped. Swallowed. You're right, I might not recover. And the scarring. I know. I whispered. You know. I couldn't explain. Couldn't tell her that I'd lived through this once before. Couldn't tell her that this time. It was different. This time. Chloe was going to pay. Can I see a lawyer? I asked. My mother blinked. A lawyer. I need to talk to Matthew Chin. I don't understand. Please. Mom. Just call him. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. Matthew Chin came to the hospital that afternoon. He was a small man with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. He sat in the chair next to my bed and listened while I told him what had happened. Not all of it. Most of it. The parts that mattered. The cameras. He said. You said there were cameras. 3 of them. In the lab. They should have caught everything. Who installed them? A friend. I couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. They'll come forward when they need to. Matthew nodded slowly. And the bottle. It has her fingerprints. Yes. And the lab records. They'll show she signed out the acid. Probably. Then we have a case. He leaned back in his chair. A strong one. Assault with a deadly weapon. Intent to cause grievous bodily harm. Possibly attempted murder. Depending on how the prosecutor wants to charge it. What's the maximum? 15 to 20 years. If we're lucky. I closed my eyes. 15 to 20 years. For what she did to me. For what she did to my face. For what she did to my life. That's not enough. I said. Matthew's expression didn't change. It's what the law allows. Then we'll make it enough. The next few weeks were a blur of surgeries and interviews and legal meetings. The media got wind of the story. Northwestern student attacked with acid by jealous roommate. And suddenly I was everywhere. On the news. On social media. On the front page of every newspaper in the country. Reporters camped outside the hospital. They wanted interviews. They wanted photos. They wanted to know how I was feeling, what I was thinking, whether I'd ever be able to look at myself in the mirror again. I gave them what they wanted. I cried on camera. I talked about my dreams, my hopes, my plans for the future, all of which had been destroyed by one moment of senseless violence. I played the victim, and I was good at it, because I'd been practicing. My mother didn't understand why I was so calm. You should be angry, she said one night. After a particularly grueling interview. You should be furious. You should be screaming. I am. I said. On the inside. Then why don't you show it? Because showing it would ruin everything. Because if I seemed angry, people would wonder if I'd provoked Chloe. If I seemed vengeful, people would wonder if I'd wanted this to happen. If I seemed anything other than a perfect, innocent victim, the jury might not believe me. And I needed them to believe me. Because Chloe's lawyers were already spinning their story. She was stressed. They told the press. She'd been under a lot of pressure. It was a moment of temporary insanity. She didn't mean to hurt anyone. But I had the cameras. And the fingerprints. And the lab records. And the notebook. And the videos. By the time I was done, Chloe's lawyers wouldn't have a leg to stand on. The trial was set for January. 3 months away. 3 months for me to heal. To prepare. To make sure everything was in place. 3 months for Chloe to sit in her cell and think about what she'd done. I spent those months in physical therapy, learning to use my new face. The surgeries had helped. Somewhat. The burns on my right cheek had been grafted with skin from my thigh. My left eyelid had been reconstructed. My lips would never be the same. But at least I could talk without spitting. The scars were permanent. The doctors said they'd fade over time. But they'd never disappear. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw Chloe's handiwork. And every time I saw it, I remembered why I was doing this. The courtroom was packed on the first day of the trial. Journalists from every major news network filled the first 3 rows. Behind them, members of the public who'd lined up at dawn to get a seat. And in the back, Chloe's family. Her mother weeping quietly. Her father stony, faced and silent. I sat in the front row, next to my mother. My face was still bandaged. The doctors had recommended it. For medical reasons. But everyone knew it was for effect. To remind the jury of what had been done to me. Chloe sat at the defense table, flanked by her lawyers. She looked different than I remembered. Thinner. Paler. Her hair had lost its luster. Her eyes had lost their light. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in months. Because she probably hadn't. The judge. A woman in her 50s with steel. Gray hair and a no-nonsense expression. Called the court to order. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, she said, you have been called here today to hear the case of the state of Illinois versus Chloe Harmon. The defendant is charged with aggravated battery, assault with a deadly weapon, and attempted murder. We will now hear opening statements. The prosecutor stood up. She was a tall woman with a sharp jaw and sharper eyes. Her name was Dana Morrison, And she'd been handpicked for this case by the district attorney himself. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began. On October 17th of this year, Bonnie Morrow walked into a building on her own campus, expecting to meet a friend. Instead, she met a monster. Chloe's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. "Because that's what the defendant is," Dana continued. "A monster. Someone who had been planning for months to hurt Bonnie Morrow. Someone who stalked her, filmed her, and documented her every move. Someone who walked into that building with a bottle of concentrated sulfuric acid and threw it in Bonnie's face." She gestured toward me. "Look at her," she said. "Look at what the defendant did to her. Bonnie Morrow will never look the same again. She may never see out of her right eye again. She will carry the scars of this attack for the rest of her life." Dana paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "And for what?" she asked. "Because Bonnie slept with the defendant's boyfriend 2 years ago. Because Bonnie was prettier. Because Bonnie had opportunities the defendant didn't. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. And it's not good enough." She walked back to her table. "The evidence will show that Chloe Harmon is guilty of every charge brought against her," she said. "And when you've seen that evidence, I'm confident you'll return the only verdict that justice demands. Guilty." She sat down. Chloe's lawyer stood up. He was older, with silver hair and a calm, measured voice. His name was Harold Finch, and he was one of the best defense attorneys in the state. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "my client is not a monster." He walked slowly toward the jury box. "She's a young woman who made a terrible mistake. A mistake that she has regretted every single day since it happened. A mistake that she wishes more than anything she could take back." He stopped in front of the jury. "But wishing doesn't make it so. And regretting doesn't change what happened. My client is guilty of something. She's guilty of poor judgment, of emotional instability, of acting without thinking. But she is not guilty of attempted murder. She did not plan this attack. She did not intend to cause the harm that resulted." He turned to look at Chloe. She was scared. She was confused. She was suffering from a mental health crisis that had been building for months. And in that moment of crisis, she made a choice that she will regret for the rest of her life. He turned back to the jury. "That doesn't make her a monster. It makes her human. And I ask you, as you listen to the evidence, to remember that humanity. To remember that my client is more than the worst thing she's ever done." He sat down. The judge looked at the prosecution table. "Ms. Morrison, your first witness." Dana stood up. "The state calls Bonnie Morrow." My heart was pounding as I walked to the witness stand. The bandages on my face felt heavy, conspicuous, exactly the way I wanted them to feel. I raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth. The whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Then I sat down. "Bonnie," Dana said, "can you tell the jury, in your own words, what happened on October 17th? I took a deep breath, and I told them. I told them about Chloe's text message, asking me to meet her at the old chemistry building. I told them about walking into the lab, expecting to talk things out with a friend who'd been struggling. I told them about the bottle in Chloe's hand, the way her face had twisted, the words she'd said before she threw the acid. I didn't tell them about the cameras. I didn't tell them about the notebook. I didn't tell them about any of the things that would make them question whether I was really the innocent victim I was pretending to be. I just told them the story they needed to hear. And I cried at all the right moments." Harold Finch's cross. "Examination was brutal. Ms. Morrow," he said, "isn't it true that you and my client had a difficult relationship?" "Yes." "Isn't it true that you slept with her boyfriend while she was at her grandmother's funeral?" I nodded. "Yes, that's true. And isn't it true that you moved back into the apartment this semester despite knowing that my client was still angry with you?" "I moved back because I wanted to make things right." "Make things right?" He raised an eyebrow. By attending the same classes as her. By inserting yourself into her daily routine. By inserting yourself into her life. By being her friend. By being her friend. He repeated. Even though she told you she didn't want to be friends. She never said that. Didn't she? He pulled out a piece of paper. I have here a text message from my client to you. Dated August 15th of this year. It says, I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. Stay away from me. Did you receive that message? I'd forgotten about that text. In my previous life, it had been one of the last things Chloe ever said to me before the attack. In this life, I'd chosen to ignore it. Yes, I said. I received it. And yet you moved back into the apartment anyway. I wanted to apologize. You wanted to apologize. He said slowly. Even though she'd explicitly told you to stay away. I thought if she saw that I'd changed. You thought you knew better than she did about what she needed. His voice was sharp now. You thought you could insert yourself into her life whether she wanted you there or not. Objection, Dana said, badgering the witness. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Finch. Rephrase. Harold Finch smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Ms. Morrow, he said, isn't it true that you intentionally provoked my client in the weeks leading up to the attack? Objection, Dana said. Leading. I'll allow it. The judge said. I kept my face neutral. I didn't provoke her. You didn't talk about your modeling career. You didn't mention your perfectly symmetrical face. You didn't do anything to make her feel jealous or insecure. I was excited about my career. I shared that excitement with my friend. Even though she wasn't excited for you. I thought she was. You thought. He said. You thought a lot of things, didn't you? Ms. Morrow. I didn't answer. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, no further questions. I walked back to my seat. My hands were shaking, but I'd done what I needed to do. I'd played my part. Now all I had to do was wait. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution called witness after witness. Chloe's chemistry professor, who testified that she'd signed out the acid illegally. The lab manager, who said the bottle was missing from the locked cabinet. The police officer who'd arrested Chloe at the scene. They played the video from the hidden cameras. The jury watched Chloe walk into the lab, watched her raise the bottle, watched her throw the acid in my face. Several jurors cried. I didn't. I'd seen it before. The defense called their own witnesses, psychologists who testified about Chloe's mental state, friends who said she'd been acting strangely for months, family members who talked about the pressure she'd been under. But it wasn't enough. Because the evidence was too strong. Because the video was too clear. Because I'd made sure that there was no way out. On the last day of the trial, the jury retired to deliberate. They were gone for 2 hours. 2 hours of sitting in the courtroom. Waiting. Wondering. 2 hours of watching Chloe's face get paler and paler. 2 hours of my mother holding my hand so tight it hurt. Then the jury came back. The foreman, a middle-aged man with a kind face and sad eyes, handed a piece of paper to the judge. The judge read it. Her expression didn't change. The defendant will rise, she said. Chloe stood up. Her lawyers stood on either side of her, on the charge of aggravated battery. The judge read, we the jury find the defendant guilty. Chloe's mother screamed. On the charge of assault with a deadly weapon. We the jury find the defendant guilty. Chloe's face crumpled. On the charge of attempted murder. We the jury find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Chloe collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Her lawyers tried to comfort her, but she pushed them away. And I sat in my seat, watching. Feeling nothing at all. The sentencing was set for the following month. Chloe was remanded to custody without bail. As the marshals led her out of the courtroom, She turned and looked at me. Her eyes were red. Her face was wet. Her mouth was moving. But I couldn't hear what she was saying. I didn't need to. I knew what she was saying. Why? Why did you do this to me? I held her gaze for a long moment. Then I turned away. Because I didn't have an answer for her. Not one she'd understand. Not one that would make any sense to someone who hadn't lived through what I'd lived through. Not one that would explain why I'd let her destroy my face just so I could destroy her life. I didn't have an answer. So I gave her nothing. The sentencing hearing was held on a Tuesday. The courtroom was less crowded than it had been for the trial. The media had moved on to other stories, other tragedies. But Chloe's family was there. My mother was there. And a few reporters who'd stuck around for the conclusion. Chloe stood at the defense table, wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her. She looked small, smaller than I remembered. Her hair was dull. Her skin was sallow. Her eyes had lost whatever fire had once burned in them. She looked like someone who had already given up. The judge called the court to order. Before I pronounced sentence, she said, "I will hear statements from the victim and the defendant." Dana Morrison stood up. "The state calls Bonnie Morrow." I walked to the witness stand. My bandages were off today. The doctors had said it was time. My scars were visible for everyone to see. The twisted skin on my right cheek. The droop of my left eyelid. The lines of reconstructed tissue that crisscrossed my face like a map of everything I'd lost. I'd worn makeup today. Not to cover the scars. To emphasize them. "You may proceed," the judge said. I turned to face Chloe. "Chloe," I said, "I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I forgive you." Her eyes flickered. "Because I don't." I continued. "I don't forgive you. I don't know if I ever will. You took something from me that I can never get back. My face, my career, my sense of safety in the world. Every time I look in the mirror, I see what you did to me. Every time someone stares at me on the street, I remember that I used to be beautiful. Every time I close my eyes, I feel the acid burning my skin." My voice cracked. "I used to have dreams," I said. "I used to have plans. I used to think that my life was going somewhere. And you took all of that away from me. In one moment. In one stupid, selfish, violent moment." Chloe was crying now. "And the worst part," I said, "is that I don't even think you understand what you did. I don't think you understand that I'm never going to be the same. That I'm never going to look at myself in the mirror and see anything but the person you made me into." I paused. "So I'm not going to forgive you. And I'm not going to wish you well. But I am going to ask the judge to give you the maximum sentence allowed by law. Because that's the only way you're going to learn that actions have consequences." I stepped down from the witness stand, walked back to my seat, sat down next to my mother, and waited. Harold Finch stood up. "The defense calls Chloe Harmon." Chloe walked to the witness stand. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the jury. The same jury that had convicted her. And then she looked at me. "Bonnie," she said, "I'm sorry." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I know that doesn't mean anything. I know it doesn't fix what I did. But I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you. Not really. She stopped. Swallowed. "I just didn't know how to deal with how I was feeling. I was angry. And scared. And jealous. And I didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't know how to ask for help." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness," she said. "I'm not asking for anyone's forgiveness. I just want you to know that I'm not a monster. I'm just someone who made a terrible mistake. And I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life." She looked at the judge. "I'll accept whatever sentence you give me," she said. "I deserve it. I deserve worse. But please, please don't let this one moment define the rest of my life. I can be better. I will be better. I just need a chance to prove it." She stepped down. walked back to the defense table, sat down, and cried. The judge was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. Chloe Harmon, she said, I have listened to the evidence in this case. I have listened to the victim's statement and to your statement. And I have considered the arguments made by both the prosecution and the defense. Chloe looked up. Your crime was premeditated. You planned this attack for weeks. You stalked the victim. You documented her routines. You obtained the acid illegally. And then you walked into that building and threw it in her face. The judge's voice was cold. The damage you caused is permanent. Bonnie Morrow will carry the scars of your violence for the rest of her life. She may never fully recover the use of her right eye. She will never recover her former appearance. Chloe sobbed. Your lawyer has asked me to consider your mental state at the time of the attack. And I have considered it. But the evidence shows that you were not suffering from a temporary insanity that prevented you from knowing right from wrong. You knew exactly what you were doing. You just didn't care. The judge picked up a piece of paper. Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that you, Chloe Harmon, are sentenced to 15 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections, with no possibility of parole. Chloe's mother screamed. Chloe collapsed. The courtroom erupted. And I sat there, watching, feeling nothing at all. After the hearing, I met with Matthew Chen in a private room at the courthouse. She got 15 years. He said, That's more than we expected. It's not enough. It never is. He looked at me. Are you okay? I thought about the question. Was I okay? My face was scarred. My career was over. My life was never going to be the same. But I'd won. Chloe was going to prison. She was going to spend 15 years behind bars, thinking about what she'd done. And I was going to spend those 15 years learning to live with the face she'd given me. I'm fine, I said. Matthew nodded. If you need anything, I know where to find you. I stood up, walked out of the room, past the reporters who were still lingering in the hallway, past Chloe's mother, who was crying in a corner, past the courtroom where Chloe was being led away in handcuffs, and out into the cold January air. 3 months after the sentencing, I went to visit Chloe in prison. Not because I wanted to see her, because I needed to. I needed to look her in the eyes and see what 15 years behind bars looked like on someone who'd once had everything. The prison was 2 hours outside Chicago. A gray concrete building surrounded by barbed wire and guard towers. I signed in at the front desk, showed my ID, and waited in a cold, sterile room until a guard came to escort me to the visiting area. The visiting area was a large room filled with plastic tables and chairs. Inmates sat on one side of a glass partition, visitors on the other. Everyone spoke through phones mounted on the wall. I sat down at a table, waited, and then Chloe walked in. She looked worse than she had at the sentencing. Thinner, paler. Her hair had been cut short. Prison regulations. Probably. Dark circles ringed her eyes. Her hands were cuffed in front of her, and a guard unlocked them before she sat down. She picked up the phone on her side of the glass. I picked up mine. Bonnie, she said. Her voice was hoarse. I didn't think you'd come. I almost didn't. Why did you? I looked at her hollowed out cheeks, at her bloodshot eyes, at the way her hands trembled as she held the phone. I wanted to see you, I said. I wanted to see what 15 years looks like. It looks like this. She gestured at herself. It looks like being locked in a cage 3 hours a day. It looks like never seeing the sun. It looks like knowing that everyone you've ever known thinks you're a monster. Do you blame them? No. She shook her head. I don't blame anyone. I did this to myself. Good. I leaned closer to the glass. Because you did. I know. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Chloe said, There's something I don't understand. What's that? The cameras, she said. In the building. How did they get there? Who put them there? I didn't answer. The police said they were installed weeks before the attack. She continued. Weeks. Bonnie. That means someone knew what was going to happen. Someone planned for it. She stared at me through the glass. Was it you? I met her gaze. Didn't flinch. Didn't look away. What do you think? I asked. I think you wanted this to happen. Her voice was shaking. I think you pushed me. I think you set me up. I think you wanted me to hurt you so you could destroy me. That's a serious accusation. Is it true? I leaned back in my chair. Looked at her. At the girl who'd once been my friend. The girl who'd once been my enemy. The girl who'd killed me in another life. No, I said. It's not true. Then why? Because you're not worth it. The words came out harsher than I'd intended. But I didn't take them back. Chloe's face crumpled. I'm not worth it. You're not worth the energy it would take to hate you that much. I stood up. You're not worth the time it would take to plan something like that. You're not worth anything. Chloe. You never were. Bonnie. That's why you did what you did. I said. Because you knew you weren't worth anything. And you couldn't stand that I was. I hung up the phone. Turned away from the glass. Walked toward the door. Behind me. I heard Chloe pounding on the glass. Heard her screaming my name. Heard the guards rushing to restrain her. I didn't look back. I walked out of the visiting room. Out of the prison. And into the sunlight. My car was parked in the visitor's lot. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time. Staring at the steering wheel. Thinking about everything that had happened. I'd won. Chloe was in prison. She was going to stay there for 15 years. But I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like a ghost. A ghost wearing someone else's face. Living someone else's life. Pretending to be someone I wasn't. Because the truth was, I wasn't Bonnie Morrow anymore. Not the Bonnie who'd laughed with friends in the dining hall. Not the Bonnie who dreamed of a modeling career. Not the Bonnie who jumped off a bridge because she couldn't stand to look at herself in the mirror. I was something else. Something harder. Something darker. Something that had been born in fire and acid and the cold, dark water of the river. I didn't know what to call that person, but I knew she was here to stay. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out of my pocket. A text from an unknown number. I know what you did. We need to talk. I stared at the message. Who sent it? Someone from Chloe's family. A journalist who dug too deep. Someone else. Someone I hadn't even considered. I typed back. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Then, someone who knows about the cameras. Someone who knows about the first time. My blood ran cold. The first time. What did that mean? What did they know? I typed back. I don't know what you're talking about. The response came immediately. Yes, you do. Bonnie. Or should I call you by your real name? My hands were shaking. I dropped the phone. Picked it up. Typed. Leave me alone. The response. Meet me at the bridge. Tonight. Midnight. Come alone. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. Started the car. Drove away from the prison. Away from Chloe. Away from everything I'd done. But I couldn't drive away from the voice in my head. The voice that whispered. Someone knows. Someone knows what you did. Someone knows who you really are. I didn't go to the bridge that night. I couldn't. I wasn't ready. But I knew I'd have to go eventually. Because whoever had sent that message wasn't going to go away. They knew something. Something they shouldn't have known. Something I'd never told anyone. Something about the first time. The first time Chloe had thrown acid in my face. The first time I died. The first time I'd woken up in that hospital bed with my face intact and a second chance at life. No one knew about that. No one except me. So how? My phone buzzed again. Another text from the same number. Midnight. The bridge. Don't make me come find you. I deleted the message. Turned off my phone. And drove home. The bridge was empty when I got there at 11:58. The river was dark beneath me. The same dark water that had swallowed me whole in another life. I leaned against the railing. Waited. At midnight, headlights appeared at the far end of the bridge. A car pulled up. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was tall, blonde, dressed in black. I didn't recognize her, but she recognized me. "Bonnie Morrow," she said, walking toward me. Or should I say, the second Bonnie Morrow. "Who are you?" She stopped a few feet away from me, smiled. "My name is Sarah," she said, "and I'm here because I know what you did." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." She pulled something out of her pocket. A flash drive. "I have the footage from the cameras. All of it. The ones in the building. The ones in your apartment. And the ones you didn't know about." My heart stopped. "See," Sarah continued, "I've been watching you for a long time. Longer than you know. And I've seen what you can do. What you're capable of." She held up the flash drive. "I also have the footage from the first time," she said. "The time you didn't have cameras. The time Chloe attacked you and got away with it. The time you jumped off this bridge." "That's impossible." "Is it?" She tilted her head. "You came back from the dead. Bonnie, is anything really impossible?" I stared at her knowing smile, at the flash drive in her hand. "What do you want?" I asked. "What do I want?" She laughed. "I want to help you." "Help me? There are others like you," she said. "People who've been given second chances. People who've used them to make things right. People who've done terrible things to terrible people." She stepped closer. "I'm part of a network," she said. "We find people like you. We offer them a place, a purpose, a way to use what you've become." "I don't want a purpose." "Everyone wants a purpose." She held out the flash drive. "Take this. Watch it. Then decide." I didn't move. She set the flash drive on the railing. Then she turned and walked back to her car. "Midnight," she called over her shoulder. "The bridge. Remember." She drove away. I stood there for a long time, staring at the flash drive. Then I picked it up, walked back to my car, and drove home. That night, I watched the footage. All of it. The cameras in the building. The cameras in my apartment. And the cameras I hadn't known about. The ones that showed me setting up the other cameras. The ones that showed me practicing my tears in the mirror. The ones that showed me, clear as day, setting Chloe up for a crime she would have committed anyway. I watched until the sun came up. Then I watched again. When I was done, I sat in the dark and thought about Sarah's offer. A network of people like me. People who'd been given second chances. People who'd done terrible things to terrible people. People who'd become something other than what they'd been born as. I didn't know if I wanted to be part of that. I didn't know if I wanted to be part of anything. But I knew one thing. I wasn't the same person who'd woken up in that hospital bed 8 months ago. I wasn't the same person who died in that river. I was something new. Something that had been forged in fire and acid and cold. Dark water. And whatever came next. I was ready for it. I picked up my phone. Typed a message to Sarah's number. "I'm in." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Welcome to the family." I put down the phone. Walked to the window. Looked out at the city waking up around me. Somewhere out there, Chloe was waking up in a prison cell. Somewhere out there, Sarah was planning the next mission. Somewhere out there, other people like me were getting ready to do terrible things to terrible people. And I was going to be one of them. I touched my face. Felt the scars beneath my fingers. The scars Chloe had given me. The scars I'd let her give me. The scars that had made me into who I was now. I smiled. Not a nice smile. A different kind of smile. The kind of smile that said, "Anyone else wants a piece of me. Come find me." The sun rose over the city. And I stood there, watching it, ready for whatever came next. Because I'd already died once. And I wasn't afraid to die again.